This is Charlie Groth. I volunteered to make a little screencast of the way I used to introduce Turnitin.com and use it as a teaching tool with my students. And it was pretty popular with them, much to my surprise. And so I wanted to share that with you as I've become aware that a lot of folks just use it for plagiarism detection. But it's got other uses as well. The first thing I would do when I was introducing to students is I would look at, how does it benefit you as a student? And there's a lot of different ways it does. And I get answers from them, really informally, probably not with a PowerPoint, that's for you in the screencast. But what they didn't come up with, I would then add. The big thing is that your professor isn't spending their time suspecting everyone or chasing down cheaters. That time is reserved for the students who are doing what they're supposed to. And that's where our time should be spent. Students would say, well, some professors grade on a curve, and they don't want the curve based on an A paper somebody bought from an Ivy League. They want it based on the people in their class. I would add that it protects the value of the degree. An institution has a reputation for a paper mill or not, and when we as an institution keep the reputation good by keeping plagiarism down, the advantage for the student is that their degree looks good. It looks good on their resume, and all that work they put into it and the money they put into it is protected. A student told me, I had not thought of this, that he really loved it for group projects. He was a student where I used to work who was also an employee of that school, and he, as a head of a group project, he did not want his name, especially as an employee, going on a project that included plagiarism. So the group could make sure that everybody put their work through Turnitin.com, and if there was any plagiarism in there, it got fixed, and the group could make sure that their names did not go on someone else's work that was plagiarized. And then the biggest thing is it helps students become better writers by quoting, paraphrasing, and summarizing better, by being able to see what's their own voice and what's the source's voice. It just visually, very quickly tells you what's going on. And also it's a quick screening tool. That this is how it does it. That professor can use that quick screening tool to coach and really show the student what is too similar to the source, and the student can use it to self-evaluate, just like he or she might use grammar check or spell check or the like. The students actually don't like other people plagiarizing. We looked at, in our task force, we looked at an old survey of Buck students, and they do not like other people plagiarizing, but they don't want to confront them themselves. So this helps somebody else confront them and stop it. But there's always that fear, we'll Turnitin mistakenly say I plagiarized something when I didn't, and clearly that's a no, because Turnitin doesn't accuse anyone of plagiarizing. That takes a human to do. What it does is it screens for similarity, and then it takes a person to decide that the similarity is due to plagiarism and act on it. So this, we can dispense with that idea, and then what I would do is I would show the students how I analyze something, both for plagiarism detection and also for coaching. So let's do that now. Let's come over here. Here I've got my pretend class and my pretend student with this pretend paper that I wrote myself for this screencast. And it says that 69% of this screencast, or of this paper, is similar to things that Turnitin found elsewhere. Here's the first thing I talk about with my student. Our textbook for research papers, Bruce Ballinger's The Curious Researcher, recommends no more than 10 to 20% quoted. If this is all perfectly quoted and all in the up and up, almost 70% is way too much quoting for a paper, and we talk about how do you get that percentage down. You can either trim the quotes, you can take some of the material and instead of quoting it, paraphrase or summarize, so it's your wording if not your ideas, but of course you need to cite all that information. Or you talk more about the sources you use, and you gain more control over the argument and over the sources themselves. And if you talk more in your voice with your ideas, that percentage will go down. So let's now look at this. And first thing you'll see is there was a different number here. And the reason there's a different number is that when I came to this before popping it up, I clicked exclude quotes. So it goes through this and it's excluding all the quotes, so that it comes up as 51%. So about 18% was quoted properly, and all this rest has not been quoted properly. All right, so I'm going to actually take this back out. Apply my changes. And then we're going to look at the match. Okay, so here's my pretend thing. And the first thing the student whose draft this might be, and I ask for volunteers, so anybody who purposely plagiarized their draft before they came to class will not volunteer. Somebody who knows they did their own work will volunteer, and we'll go from there. And the first thing they'll often say is, what? I never looked at this source. I don't know anybody from this school. And that's where you dispel the notion that Turnitin is saying that they looked at this for this and they looked at this for this. It's not what it's saying. It's saying what's found here is similar to what's found there. How they became similar, who knows? This, for example, actually, I lifted the subtitle from Wikipedia. The only things I looked at to make this fake thing was Wikipedia and BBC's transcript of the I Had a Dream speech. So I know that I actually lifted this from Wikipedia, but I'm guessing that this source joined it with Martin Luther King Jr. : and that's why it's matching it with that instead of Wikipedia. But then let's look at what it's taking from Wikipedia. This chunk here, I did what many of our students do. I opened the source and I started writing, and I switched in some words. And in fact, let me see if I can get this up for you nicely. I hope it doesn't freeze. But Turnitin.com pulls up the original and highlights there what's similar. So it's really easy for you to see what did it used to be and what is it now, if in fact the students did look at the same thing. And you can see I did synonyms, I took out based on, I put in drawing from, and things like that. And if I go down to here, I will see it's a complete chunk. Let me get rid of that. Good. And what's nice is that you can find what many of my colleagues call patch writing, which is not a good summarizing technique. And I call it plagiarizing. And this is where I can coach my student to sit and say, you know what you need to do? Clearly, you're still copying that sentence with a few synonyms. You've got the same syntax. You've got blurbs of the same choices. And then what you need to do is make sure you understand the information, close up the source, imagine your audience, and talk to your audience. And it's very likely the language is going to be more different. So let me go down here. This one, actually, this comes up exactly. I took something from Wikipedia and I inverted the order, and I ended up with something exactly like this one. They probably did the same thing, and that's it, is that it may be that these are similar to things you didn't look at because that other source took from Wikipedia, and in this case, that other source might have taken from Wikipedia like I did and inverted the order, and so therefore we ended up with the same sentence. But the other thing with this one, this is just very conventional basic language we tend to use to talk about biography. Yada yada was born to yada yada, and yada yada on yada yada in yada yada. So it could be another person, and Turnitin.com might grab this because the syntax is all the same. In this case, I might say this is such conventional language. It is unoriginal, not in the sense of plagiarized, but in the sense of boring. And then the question is that, is that a problem or not? That's a style question. Same thing here, although this is more likely to be copied than not, and I was patch writing again. I was plagiarizing, and I probably plagiarized it such that it became more similar to the way this one did. Here, I'm going to look at, here's another convention. So-and-so is best known for such and such. And I might ask my students, is this really your point, or are you just following a convention? And if you're just following the cliche, pop out the cliche. All right, so here I can see that here's a block quote that it's identified, and I can tell you if I funnel this out, it detects it. It detects the lines on the same page. Here, I'll do that again. What the heck? All right, now I'm getting rid of the quotes. It's going to go back to the 51%. And you can see it no longer highlights this. I think the way the thing works is it can't catch this few on the next page because there's only 1.5 there. It hasn't caught it. It's still identifying it as similar and not quoted. But I, as a professor, can see it's quoted. No big deal. Now, here's a huge chunk. And actually, these are in quote marks. So when I exclude quoted, these don't come up. But actually, if I go back and I include the quoted, all this comes up as a big, solid block. And then I'm going to look at this carefully. And as a human, I'm going to say, well, does the student signal a quote? Do they cite the source according to so-and-so and then give the quote? Have they at the very least have a citation down here? That might tell me that, is it right? No, it's not right. But it might tell me that the student just accidentally didn't put the quote marks in. In the digital age, they copy and paste from other areas, and they may have just forgotten, copied and pasted from their notes or from a source, the quote, and forgot to put the quote marks in. But this one doesn't, and in fact, it's highly unlikely that much is going to be the same as Wikipedia or somewhere else without some copying going on. And they don't even cite Wikipedia here, much less signal the quote, qualify the source, or cite it in parentheses. So I'm going to look at this and say, this looks more like unintentional plagiarism. And I would put that together with other things I knew about the student. Were they doing this in other papers? Have I warned them a million times? Have I already coached them through? Do they need a plagiarism charge to convince them that this is serious stuff? Do they, need to be coached one more time? Is there some other mitigating service, or is it like so much of the paper that it's blatant plagiarism and I just need to put in my charge? That's something that I will decide. A student who, I can set this up so the students can check their own work. They can put drafts in before the due date and look it in, screen it themselves, say, oh my gosh, I forgot to cite that. Fix it up and put it through again, see how they're doing, and at the very end they put their final version where they have made it better. They've done their writing better, and they really liked that because honest students, which almost all of ours are, they don't want to make a mistake that makes them look dishonest, and this tool becomes really useful for them as well as being useful for me. I find in terms of plagiarism detection that I don't actually have to do as much when we run them all through. I have the students turn their papers in this way. We run them all through, and so I'm not suspecting people. I rarely find something that I suspect outside of Turnitin.com, and in fact, students don't try as much of the nonsense. So I don't get as many anyway, and when I do, it's very quickly identified. I very quickly turn in the report, and I move on to the students who more warrant my attention to help coach them with their own work. And that's it. If anybody has any questions, please shoot me an email. Thanks a lot.